everybody, welcome to Canal Retina podcast and to Perspectives podcast. Today we are in Ireland. We are recording this podcast from Dublin, where we have had a meeting of the Retina International Board, and as you can see, we are recording it in English because we have two special guests today with us. But first, let me tell you that you can find this podcast in English in the Retina International platforms, and as well you can find it in Spanish in the Canal Retina platforms in Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and as well in the intelligent speakers. So let's start. Well, as I previously said, we've got two relevant guests today. We are with Avril Daly, the Chief Executive Officer of Retina International, and we are also with Jason Menzo, who is the President and the Chief Executive Officer of the Foundation Fighting Blindness. Hello, both of you. Thank you for being here with us, sharing this podcast.
Thanks, David. Hi.
Okay.
Good to be here.
Okay. And the first question is for Avril. For those who don't know Retina International quite well, can you explain us, Avril, what is the role of this organization in the global retina community?
Well, firstly, Retina International is an international organization of patient-led organizations who are all interested in working at a local level, at a disease-specific level, and at an international level in trying to find solutions for inherited retinal degenerations and age-related retinal disease, as well as other forms of retinal degenerations as well. So we are a large umbrella of organizations, but really focused on solutions. And many of our members, who are based all over the world, from very large countries like Jason here, who's the CEO of Foundation Fighting Blindness, a very large organization, our largest member actually, and very tiny organizations who are voluntary-led and still achieving huge results on very little resource. So our job is to really look at the community and support them in their work at a local level. So our members are our boss. They decide what we should do and how we should do it, really. And we engage our members in all of our activities. And those activities are very much looking at how we can create a case for support for the retina community. So how we can create an understanding of why it is important to invest in this community from a research perspective. So at the lab, when people are trying to discover how they are going to approach a research program, through what's called the translational aspect. So when you take a piece of research from bench to the clinic, into a clinical trial, and then what we need to consider in demonstrating our value as a community in the regulation phase. So when a regulator like the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA in the United States, or the European Medicines Agency in Europe, and others in different regions, when they are evaluating a therapy, why is it important? And then when it comes to, if it's approved, when it comes to market access, why is it important that patients get rapid but equitable access to the outcomes of research? So it's quite a lot, but it really focuses on ensuring that the patient voice is central to the decision making from concept to delivery of an innovation.
What are the main concerns that patients and families have right now, from your perspective?
Well, I suppose there's different concerns. The community that we would serve, who are organizations in their own right, and just to be clear, so our members are organizations, and they in turn serve their communities, who are patients themselves or parents of people living with IRDs, inherited retinal degenerations, or children of people living with age-related macular degeneration and other forms of retinal diseases. And their concerns are generally the same, having independence in their lives, having the support services that are needed. When people are diagnosed with a retinal degeneration, if they have never heard of it before, it is a big shock to be told you're going to go blind, you're going to lose your vision, and not get clarity about when that's going to happen or how that's going to happen, because that's different in each case. And so people need support when they are diagnosed in the first instance, and then they need to understand, what is our journey here? What is our pathway forward? Are we going to get treatment? Is there a treatment? If there isn't a treatment, and they're told there's some research, well, what does that really mean to me as a patient? What does that really mean to my family? Okay. So really they want support. They want to understand, and importantly, and a key priority for Retina International is to inform patients about the process of research and access to diagnosis, because there's an important point here, David. Diagnosis, in the general terms, you go to your doctor or you go to your specialist and they give you a clinical diagnosis. In the case of IRDs in particular, that's not always the case, because you have to have a genetic diagnosis to understand your condition. And in that case of inherited retinal degenerations, you're talking about 350 described gene types, and each of them have a different pathway and a different reality. So for patients to be truly informed and empowered, they really need to understand what their gene is so that they can make plans for their future. So really it's practical as well. And what we do in Retina International is work with those patients and learn from their experience to really address the roadblocks to innovate, to access to a diagnosis, to access to a confirmatory diagnosis that is a genetic diagnosis, and then to supports care, rehabilitation, and to the innovation that we have and is in the pipeline.
And how important is collaboration right now, especially in research and in clinical trials, because they are moving so fast? How important it is?
In any time you want to be successful, you have to collaborate. And in our case, from a research perspective, we have to do that at a global level. We have to be considerate of the global reality and work together in partnership. Research successes, if you look at the papers and the publications, you will see that there's collaborations across institutions, across borders. But more and more, we're starting to see patients engage in a lot of this, because researchers need to understand, well, what's value to the patient? What do we need to look at here? What can we develop that's going to make a difference? So our voice as patient representatives needs to be central and needs to be important. Not that we're telling the researchers how to do their job. It's, well, this is important to me. So that kind of collaboration is important. But on top of that, as we have therapeutics develop, which we have, and we will have more, hopefully, of, we need to engage more with the clinical community so that they understand, what's coming down the tracks. And within that, we need to engage with and collaborate with health ministries, because they will have to make room in their health budget to support the new pathways of care that will be developed for our community. And they're different in each region. On top of that, we have to work with policymakers, at an above country level. So not just at a national level, above country. And why that's really important, David, is there are certain regions in the world where, there is a mechanism to engage collaboratively across borders, and we need to be present in those discussions. But importantly, and we've been talking here as the board of Retina International and the executive team about ensuring that we are representative truly globally. And there are regions in this world where people live with IRDs and they don't leave their homes because they have no support and they have no one to talk to them about what is possible and what's available. And we need to make sure that we are there for them. So for us, collaborating with groups that support people in different regions and engaging with them is critically important. We're never going to get to where we want to go if we don't work together across borders, across regions. And oftentimes, and this is important, within the different eye disease areas, you have people with IRDs, different types of IRDs, different, age-related diseases. We have to talk to each other. We have to find ways of collaborating to find solutions. And that's that's really what we're all about and why we were formed in the first place.
Okay. Next June, we are in 2026, Tech June, in Texas, in the United States. There's going to be place the next Retina International World Congress. Jason, why this Congress takes place? I think every 2 years. Why is important the Retina International World Congress in Texas?
Yeah, well, thanks, David. And Avril, it was great to not only share this opportunity to chat with you, but also hear all the terrific opportunities for collaboration. We value at the Foundation Fighting Blindness the deep collaboration we have with Retina International as a member, but then also obviously as a board, and really to drive what the future is going to look like for this community. It is actually the collaboration between the Foundation Fighting Blindness in the United States and Retina International that has brought together this, what I view as truly a once-in-a-lifetime gathering of the blind and low vision community. And so at the Foundation Fighting Blindness, every 2 years we have a Congress called Visions. And Visions traditionally brings together hundreds and hundreds of individuals from across the United States and even across the world historically to a central location where we will review the latest in research and living and thriving and technology and community building. And this is an every other year event that we typically host as a Foundation Fighting Blindness. And this year, in 2026, we are merging our traditional Visions Conference with the Retina International World Congress. And it is like a traditional Visions or like a traditional Retina International World Congress on steroids. It is bigger and better and more engagement. We expect potentially north of 1,000 people gathering together in Fort Worth, Texas. The saying in the United States is that everything's bigger in Texas. I don't know if you've ever heard that before. So we felt like Texas was a great place to have this Congress. But it's going to be June 12th and 13th in Fort Worth, Texas. And we have a fantastic lineup of speakers from all over the world. We'll have translation available in many, many different languages. So that way anyone from
this is
across
a good
the globe.
news. This is a real good news having this one.
Yeah, I mean, we want this to be the most inclusive and welcoming environment for the global blind and low vision community. And so it's a really fantastic opportunity for everyone, no matter where you're located across the globe, to join us in Fort Worth this summer, June 12th and 13th in Fort Worth.
Can you tell us something in advance about the agenda? About,
Yeah. Well, we will have, like we always do, we will have the latest global experts in research, both in basic research and in clinical research, sharing all the positive traction and progress that is happening in advancing treatments and cures for blinding diseases. But we'll also have, I'm really excited about this, our keynote speaker, which we just recently announced, is a world-class Paralympic athlete. Her name is Anastasia Pagonis, and she actually is a current world record holder in multiple events. She'll be performing at this next Paralympic Games, and she's a passionate advocate for blindness and low vision. And so we're excited to have her. She's got quite a big social media following, I guess, as well. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. If you have to invite the people who is watching or listening this podcast, what should you say in order to invite them to go to the States and be in the Congress?
Yeah, so I invite every single one of you who are watching this to join us in Texas this summer. It will be one of the, if not the largest gathering of people in our community ever in history. And it will be a lot of education, but also a lot of fun and a lot of community and networking. And what I know from the Retina International World Congresses I've been to, and certainly at Visions, the relationships that are formed at these meetings last a lifetime. And so I roll out the red carpet to join us in the United States in Fort Worth this summer.
How is integrated the patient voice in this kind of congresses of Retina International?
I mean, this Congress, is very much focused on science, and but including the patient perspective as well, and the reality. But patients do come to our meetings. We have a continuous education program beforehand to talk about what I've just been speaking about, how patients can come together, people living with these conditions, to amplify their voice in decision making and ensuring that we can progress in innovation. But within this conference as well, and particularly this year, which I think is really exciting, there are tracks for patients to talk about life, to talk about living with these conditions. And, we've been having these conversations over the past couple of days and talking to our younger people who represent young people globally. They want to talk about life and reality, and there are opportunities at this conference to do so. And I think your point, Jason, is very, very important. The relationships that are made at these congresses, they last a lifetime. People become friends, but also what's really important is you talked earlier about collaboration, right? And that's sort of what we call multi-stakeholder collaboration. So patients speaking to clinicians, speaking to researchers, speaking to people who are innovators, about this work and, what's required and all good things, and maintaining that relationship going forward is really important because it helps us all understand each other, which is really important, but also to grow the community, because this community is driven by patients and patient need, and Foundation Fighting Blindness was founded by patients for that purpose. But we all have to work together, and we're all a community, and we all want success, and the only way is to sit with people, meet people, and that's a really great opportunity next year in Texas to do so, because I think the way the conference has been structured, it really prioritizes the networking opportunities, which often in congresses you don't get enough time, because it's this or that or whatever, but there is time and there is opportunity at this particular congress this year. So definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd add is that there's certainly going to be, as there always is, a very significant amount of focus on the latest advances in research.
Yeah.
And those who are interested in learning about the latest advances, this is a perfect place to get up to speed very, very quickly. But that isn't the only subject matter that we're talking about. One of my favorite sessions from our last Congress that we had in 2024 was actually focused on mental health. And it was standing room only. We had several mental health professionals, several of which who are actually personally affected with the blinding disease as well, talk about the importance of mental health. And with the work that Retina International is doing around mental health, the work that the Foundation Fighting Blindness is doing around mental health, I'm certain that people who attend this Congress will find a lot of value in that. And then the other, which is always a favorite, is around the latest technology and how the benefit of using what's happening with meta glasses and screen readers and artificial intelligence and how it's infusing into our daily lives, and what the best practices are and how to leverage this technology to live your best life regardless of what condition you may be affected with.
Wow, wonderful. And then don't you think that for patients, for families, having the opportunity to be together with those researchers, with those, and have this opportunity, don't you think it's important, apart from listening the talks, the possibility to be together and ask their own, requirements? Don't you think it's important?
I will tell you a story from our last Congress that we had in 2024, where a young woman came up to me and said that this was the first time she ever met someone else that had her exact condition. And she was very emotional, and it was very, I would say, life-changing for her, because she felt this, and I've said this, we've talked about this a lot, Avril, that, I am not personally affected, but I know from talking to so many folks that it can be a very lonely experience, and how important it is to connect with others. And that in order for us to achieve our missions, it is not going to be one person or one organization that moves the needle. It is going to be our global community working together. And part of the benefit of congresses like this is the connection and the relationships that come out of whether it's a family or an individual meeting others that are in the exact same, having that same lived experience.
Okay, wonderful and amazing. Having Jason Menzo with us, the president and the CEO of Foundation Fighting Blindness, I can't lose the opportunity, because everybody looks at Foundation Fighting Blindness in the world, because you are a huge organization and you are really strong. What impact do you think the work you do has in the retina community?
Yeah, so we are. Thank you for saying that. And obviously, I'm very proud of the work that we do at the Foundation Fighting Blindness. We are now 55th year in existence. We were founded in 1971, and in that time, we're a very simple machine. We're very simple. We raise money, and then we turn around and we put every resource that we have to work to advance the research to drive treatments and cures forward. And in our lifetime, we have raised nearly $1 billion with a B dollars. And every single year, we are putting tens of millions of dollars to work all over the world to fund the very best research. And Avril, I love the way you said that a little bit ago, that, what does research mean? When you think about funding research, I think people automatically go to like a lab and beakers and, white lab coats. But really research takes a whole host of forms. And we fund research from very basic science that, yes, happens in a lab, but all the way through translational stage or clinical research today through one of our vehicles called the IRD Fund, where we make investments in companies that are doing work to translate great lab science to human clinical science. But through this vehicle, we have more than 100 people who have been treated with a intervention for blinding diseases, whether it be age-related macular degeneration or inherited retinal disease. Those are 100 individuals who not theoretically someday might have access to a treatment, but these are north of 100 people who have been treated already today across a dozen or so different indications in our field. And so I'm proud of the work that we do. It's not just about the research, it's about genetic testing and patient registry and natural history. There's so many programs that we have, but the most important is the community building and the network of individuals who are affected that come together and those relationships that are formed.
What about basic research? But what about translational research? Because, everybody right now thinks, I want to participate in a clinical trial. Because we feel that the cure is really near, but I think there's still a lot of things to learn, and translational research is still really important. We need to invest in this kind of research.
Yeah. So our programs at the foundation span everything from basic research all the way through clinical trials. Now we actually are involved in a very late stage clinical trial. So really, A to Z, the entire spectrum. And as Avril said a little bit ago, there are over 300 different genes that can cause an inherited retinal disease. There's also age-related macular degeneration that comes in many different varieties as well. And so as an organization, we have to think in a very sophisticated and complex way about how we advance the science and research to develop treatments for the entire spectrum. And so in some cases, we are advancing gene therapy, which may be a treatment that is specific for a very particular type of an inherited retinal disease. Let's say something like LCA5 or RDH12 or XLRP, right? So there are treatments in development that are very specifically tuned to those genes. And the individuals that happen to have LCA5 or RPE65 Luxturna will benefit in the very near future from these gene therapies, but that is not everyone. And so we are also very interested in what we call gene agnostic treatments that are treatments that could potentially affect large groups of people regardless of the gene. And that's things like cell therapy or small molecules that may slow down the degeneration associated with a particular condition. But even that is not for everyone, because we also have a different way to think about the spectrum of blinding diseases, which is early, a newly diagnosed, or early stage, or late, very, very late stage. And that's where having strategies that can reverse blindness or regain light perception, like optogenetics, at a very late stage are important as well. And as an organization, we're funding basic science all the way through clinical science across that entire spectrum.
Wonderful. And if you have to, think about the clinical trials that right now we have, and what makes you feel better, or what do you think is going to be successful?
Yeah.
It's only an opinion, I know.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the ones, listen, I was very, very personally involved in the formation of a company called Opus Genetics. And myself and other colleagues at the Foundation Fighting Blindness literally formed the company and incorporated the company and licensed the technology. I mean, working nights and weekends to form this company. And the most incredible experience from the impact of a treatment that I've seen has been in the experiences of individuals that have been treated in their LCA5 gene therapy program. And I'll tell you the story of the very first patient who was treated, who was 28 years old. He was diagnosed with LCA5 very, very young. And at that stage, LCA5 is a very significant condition. And so he had very, very limited vision, like hand-waving vision, finger counting, very minimal vision at the stage. After 30 days of being treated with this gene therapy, he was able to read letters on an eye chart. And that profound, rapid impact of a therapy is what reminds us what's possible with science. And not every treatment is going to have that type of effect. Not every patient with LCA5 may even have that exact same effect, but it's possible. And that's what inspires, I think, everyone that works in this field. I know it inspires you, Avril. It inspires us at the foundation, that we have to continue to fund the best work, and that we should expect that miracles can happen and that they're on the horizon.
Wow. For me, it's been an absolutely really pleasure having both of you in Canal Retina and in Perspectives podcast. If you have to give a last message for the retina community in both, in general and as well, talking about the Retina International World Congress, Avril, Jason?
I think the first thing I'd say is just following on from what you have said, that something that had a start where it was very small, where patients came together and had an idea, about supporting something that seemed, totally unrealistic at the time, and as you say, kind of a miracle to even think about, that becomes a reality through collaboration and real commitment by people coming together. It shows you that what we're talking about, it's possible, and you have to continue to hope, but you need to understand your environment and you need to talk to people. As you say, if I was to say the value of coming to the Congress is the opportunity to meet others who are experiencing the same thing, even though they may be living in a different part of the world, understanding what has grown out of that, that sort of acorn, really, what has grown and what has been possible, and how lives have been changed by that and by the collaboration. I think it's really important to see it, because when you talk about it, it sounds like, oh, what are they talking about? It's like this is all very hopeful and very science fiction, but it's true, and in those contexts you do see that, and I think that's the hope of the collective capital of this community, the people, the patients, the scientists, the clinicians, the innovators, the policymakers, working together can achieve miracles. And that's really what we're all about.
Yeah, what I would say is that if you're listening to this on this podcast at home by yourself, or on a train, or maybe going for a walk, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you may be watching this podcast by yourself, but you are not by yourself. You are part of a global community of people that are deeply committed to not only building relationships with others within this community, but driving our collective missions forward. And so the best way for you to experience in the flesh this community is to come to visit us in Texas in June at the Retina International World Congress and Visions. We call it United in Vision, is the combined program. And I really hope that everyone takes the opportunity to join us this summer.
So I only can say a big thank you to both of you. It's been, as I said before, an absolutely pleasure, and thank you very much. Okay, this is the finish of this episode. As we always say, if you like this episode, please give us a like in whatever platform you want. And we always say, for us, it's been a pleasure to have today these both guests. And as we always say, until the next episode, Retina Murcia, mira por ti.